dotCMS 5.2 also has a lot of smaller things specifically targeting developers and the management of dotCMS. So for example, 5.2 has a new default workflow endpoint, and this default workflow endpoint takes 3 different parameters. It takes new, edit, and publish. And when content is pushed to this new workflow endpoint, the new or edit or published, it's going to map those actions to the workflow action that's been mapped in the system. So, new content will get pushed through the new workflow, or published content will automatically get pushed through a published workflow. If that workflow action doesn't exist, then it will go ahead and do it in a best efforts basis, try to publish or persist the content based upon what it knows. So it's kind of a heuristic mechanism that decides what to do with the content as best possible. This endpoint also has improved API error reporting and validation reporting. So when a piece of content is being persisted and that content is not valid based upon the rules set on the piece of content, dotCMS will report back that in the API response, and it'll be localized based upon the language that was passed into dotCMS. There's also a temp file API. I talked a little bit about this before. It gives developers the ability to do multi-part uploads into dotCMS as temp files asynchronously from a content check-in. So temp files can be uploaded into dotCMS, and then the content can be then persisted that reference those temp files, and those temp files will be associated with the piece of content. That gives developers the ability to create really nice experiences with file uploads, select a number of files, upload those, and then while those are uploading in the background, hit submit, and the content will be submitted with those files associated with it. With regard to improvements in the stack, one thing dotCMS in 5.2 has done is we've removed the dependency on custom scripts in Elasticsearch. And so what this means is that out of the box, you can just set up an out-of-the-box Elasticsearch, kind of a vanilla Elasticsearch cluster, and point dotCMS to it without having to do any sort of custom work or install any custom scripts in that Elasticsearch. And it allows us to also leverage hosted Elasticsearch services when running in the cloud. We've also removed the struts1 jar that ship with dotCMS. We've replaced it with a jar called an open source project called struts1 forever, which has all of any struts security vulnerabilities remediated in the code base. Now dotCMS had already remediated any security vulnerabilities known with struts, but this just really clarifies that situation. We've also fully containerized our continuous integration infrastructure. The testing stack of dotCMS is now running in a Dockerized environment, and it's fired on it. Anytime a code commit comes in and gets tested against all 4 databases. So a lot of improvements there just in the entire development process. So we've also made a number of small improvements in this new release. We've done things like optimize the content check-in process. Content that's checked in that runs through 3 or 4 different workflow actions would need to be re-indexed 3 or 4 times. And now that all gets lumped into a single re-index, which makes the content saving much faster. We've added a schedule bundle cleanup job that'll automatically delete older bundles. You can specify how old, and the job will run through and delete those old bundles. I know that it's a much asked for feature. Those can fill up disks pretty fast. We've improved the default content analyzer in Elasticsearch. We were using the whitespace analyzer before for content. Now we're using the standard analyzer, which is a much more normal analyzer and should improve search results from the back end perspective.